Rabbit ate that. Rabbit ate that. Rabbit ate that, 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 that. Rabbits ate that. See, it should look like this, but they ate it down to this little nub where it doesn't grow anymore. Same right there. These were eaten as well. That's why there's nothing in this row. Nothing in this row. These got eaten. That got eaten. The rabbits killed me. So when I started our We're Starting a Farm little series here on YouTube, I promised in that video that I would show and talk about the good and the bad from learning and starting a farm. And this week and last week have been tough because I said in my last vlog that we were struggling to keep up with demand right at the market, and we were bringing as much as we could bring and then selling out really quick and not having anything else to sell. And now a week later, the problem is I can't even grow enough to bring to the market to sell because now animals are eating it. And last week it was because of a mistake I made with shade from another row of vegetables here, of kale, was giving shade to this row down here that I've completely covered with row covers because I'm determined to protect this for next week at the market. This will be our next row of lettuce, salad mix. So I'm going to end up, this week I'm going to end up harvesting this kale, which is basically done. I've done so many cuts from the kale, it just keeps regrowing, but it doesn't look as good anymore. So I'm going to cut it and give this row another week without any disturbances, shade from that kale row, and let that grow for the market. And this row here, on the edge here, I already cut this row once. This was going to be a big second cutting that I was hoping to have for this week. But I just showed you all the damage the neighborhood rabbits have done. And I haven't had issues with rabbits this whole year. Haven't had any issues with rabbits until now. Don't know why, but apparently in my last video I was talking about covering everything up with not with row covers, but with the greenhouse plastic to create little mini tunnels, poly-low tunnels, and that would also help keep the animals out if it's totally covered in plastic. So apparently I wasn't planning on doing that to this row, but apparently I need to do that, cover this row as well. But it's not worth it for me to bring 10 bags of lettuce, to the market. It's just not worth it. So we're not going to be able to make it to the market again this week, and I apologize to any customers last week that were wondering where we were. We're just struggling trying to grow food on our farm lately, but we'll be back hopefully next week. I'm going to protect this row and let it grow a little bit more, and we'll be back next week with fresh salad mix and carrots that'll be ready to go, and arugula hopefully. I don't know about next week, but the following weeks and into October we'll have arugula for the first time this year as well. So what I'm doing here, if you could see behind me, is I put down my new bug netting that I just purchased down this whole row here that I'm going to be harvesting next week, hopefully. And yeah, what I'm learning is that all of my rows are 25 feet long, and that gets me about 10 pounds of lettuce, and I sell half-pound bags of lettuce. So each 25-foot row is getting me about 10 pounds on the first cut, and then I get a little bit more on the second and sometimes third cuts, but it's less and less each time. So I'm realizing that I need to make my rows longer, and I think if I were to do 40-foot rows, that would be a perfect amount, I think, for what I want to bring at the market in the future, because it would allow me to bring about 40 bags. That would be 40 bags from a 40-foot bed, and that would be perfect. That would be perfect. I actually misspoke. I think 50-foot rows would be ideal to get the 40 bags. Yeah, 50-foot row would get me 40 bags from one cut, and that's amazing. And I think that's what I need, because then I could bring 20 bags of spring mix and 20 bags of just salad lettuce mix to the market, and that would be perfect. So for next year, I think that might be something that I'm probably going to try to do. I can actually, there's a lot of things I could do. I could, on the back half here where I have 12 25-foot rows across here, and then another row of 12 25-foot rows. But those back rows, I could extend them each 25 feet more to make 50-foot rows, and that could just be my field block for lettuce next year. Something I'm thinking about. I'm not sure. We also have some growing space on the other side of the property, and that's where I've been growing my tomatoes this year, but that could also be a place for the lettuce, because as I was saying before, we had some issues with we get a lot of shade on this side of the property, which is beneficial in the summer for the lettuce, but in the fall, when we're getting less and less sunlight, my other side of the property gets sunlight all day long, and that might be something next year I could transition to have some lettuce growing on the other side of the property. So it's always a learning process. Something else I've realized as this first growing season has gone along is that if I had to do this all over again, I would probably keep all of my lettuce successions all in one block, like all in one row, so that I could more easily see where I'm at, and it's easier to see all the successions that you need for this week, next week, the following weeks in one area than having them all over the place. Just for a newbie farmer like myself, or anybody watching that might be trying to do what I'm doing in your area, it would just be easier to see if you had it all in one area. But it's hard to do that. Like, if you only have so much growing space, you kind of just have to plant things wherever you have space open, and that's kind of what I did this year. If something comes out, something else goes back in, and that's just part of this kind of farming, is always keeping something growing in the soil, always planting, and making the most use of your space that you do have. So just for anybody who's wondering where we've been the last few weeks, we're still here. We're struggling, we're trying to grow, but we'll be back. So thanks for supporting us so far and continuing to support us, and keep an eye out for us in the next few weeks at the market. We'll be back.